Okay, everybody, we'll make a start. So first things first, for those of you that sent me questions already, great, you've already mastered the system. Feel free to send any questions you have during the presentation. We've got an hour to go through this. Try and go through it as much detail as I can based on the information that we've had, my thoughts and thoughts that I had from the AELP conference that I attended yesterday, where this was touched on very briefly in about 10 minutes by Kirsty Evans, but there were some questions asked which I've incorporated into the presentation. Hopefully I'll answer some of your questions. And we will send the slides out, and also if you want to listen to me again, I'm recording this, so you'll get a recording of the webinar, and we'll pop it up on the website as well in the coming days, so that you can either see it again or share it with staff. And I think the whole purpose of these webinars is really for you to be able to get the key messages about the reforms, and share it with staff and colleagues and partners and dogs, cats, and anybody else that you think needs to know about this stuff that's going on, and there is an awful lot going on. So we'll make a start, and we'll, first of all, we're going to look at, what was the screen moved on? Oh, hang on, why isn't it moving on? Ah, there we go. So you should now be able to see a list of what we're going to cover during the webinar. So we're going to cover, focus obviously on the register of apprenticeship training providers, but alongside that we've got the procurement of the apprenticeship training for the non-levied employers that I'll touch on towards the end as well. So we're going to look on what is the register, why are we having the register, the subcontracting, because that's a big change I think from where we were with the consultation, what to consider before applying, the application routes, a little bit about the procurement, and obviously the chance for me to answer some questions that you put either during the presentation or at the end. What we will do is we will try and gather all the questions together. So even if I don't answer your question today, I'll either come back to you directly or we'll put a Q&A together and again put on our website. There's lots of events, lots of webinars going on over the next couple of weeks on this. So anything we new we get and we glean which we think will be helpful for you will get sent out as soon as possible. Okay, so what is the new register? Well, this is lifted directly from one of the many documents. It's currently sitting in the office boardroom surrounded in a ream of paperwork, as I'm sure you are. But this is the definition of kind of why they look at the register. So the Register of Apprenticeship Training Providers, ROAPT or RAPP or whatever we're going to abbreviate it to, is a list of organisations that have demonstrated the capability to deliver apprenticeship training through an online application. Organisations successfully enter the register will be eligible to deliver apprenticeship training from May 2017. The application process helps provide assurance to government and employers, though employers may want to assure themselves that a provider is suitable to deliver their apprenticeship training contract. So it's pretty much there to make sure that the government has gone through a process which means that employers have confidence in ability to contract with training providers. Now, for many employers who are already engaged in apprenticeships, they've got a relationship with you guys out there, and those relationships will probably continue, let's face it. Fingers crossed, everything going ahead as planned, but clearly what the government is trying to do with all these reforms is get more employers engaged. Simple as that. And by having a register, it provides them an online portal where employers can go on and find out who delivers what. So the employers basically, as I said, the reform system is employer-led. That's the top and bottom of it, and they want the employers to take control over selecting the right training provider for them. So if we go back to my days when I was working for the National Apprenticeship Service from 2009 onwards, where we worked with large employers, our role was very much to match providers to them. NAS isn't the service it was and won't be. It's gone very much to an online and telephone-based service, and will continue to do so. So in many ways, the digital apprenticeship service, which will be informed by the register and the procurement exercise, is effectively providing employers with an online portal for them to go on and select providers based on the apprenticeship frameworks they want or standards they want delivered and the location they want them delivered in. So that's kind of where they want employers to take control of it, and by having the register, it means there's a process that's formulated to give employers that confidence. So as you all will be well aware, the SFA currently uses the Register of Training Organisations, ROTO, to obtain assurance about providers delivering publicly funded training and education. But it's much more general, and it's not apprenticeship focused. It's very much used for the SFA when they want to let contracts about opening it, closing it, taking a cut of who's on it and who's approved, and then ultimately allowing them an opportunity to go in and bid for contracts. Clearly, this is different. It's apprenticeship focused, and that's all it covers. That's all it covers. And the government keeps saying this, that they want to set a high bar for providers to meet, as they want very high quality apprenticeships delivered in the future, and that this is why they want the register. So pretty much any organisation wanting a role in delivering apprenticeship training from May 2017 should consider applying to the register. And this will include delivery to those levied employers, where successful applicants will appear on the digital apprenticeship service, and also to non-levied employers, the SMEs, the government are terming them as. You know, at the end of the day, 2/3 of apprentices are with smaller non-levy paying employers, so that's where the bulk of the market will be. Even if the big guys come to the table, they'll still be way behind the smaller employers in terms of the pure volume. And if you're going to deliver to non-levied employers, there's also this procurement exercise that's now running alongside the register process, that you will have to apply for in order to get a contract with the SFA to be able to draw down some money to deliver training to non-levied employers. I think the key thing about the new register is it is separate from the existing ROTO system, which will still be there. It will still be used for AEB and advanced learning loans, and there's no automatic transfer from ROTO to the new register. So we all, if we're interested, have to do a bit of work in the next month to go down the route. And they've also been very clear that they want organisations on the register who deliver the training. So it's not for managing agents, intermediaries, consortium leads and brokerage organisations and any other sort of middleman. It's purely for those who are going to be delivering training. One of the things that was in the consultation that was published in August and closed and they've now responded to was that they talked about the main provider to an employer would have to deliver at least 50% of the apprenticeship, which fundamentally affected the entire world of subcontracting within apprenticeships. The final guidance, as you may have read, has softened this requirement, which is welcome. Now, all main providers need to directly provide training for the employers, but they're now not required to deliver that significant majority of each apprenticeship, so the 50%. And following the consultation process, as is the current system, anybody who wishes to subcontract but delivers less than £100,000 worth of apprenticeship training doesn't need to apply to the register. They only need to want to apply if they want to grow the volume, or alternatively go through that process so that you can demonstrate that you've met the requirements of the register as some sort of quality assurance mark in that respect. But pretty much saying that if the smaller providers want to carry on doing what they're doing in the relationships they've got and they deliver less than £100,000 worth of apprenticeship training, then the subcontract rule can still be there and still be valid. That continues to allow flexibility for employers and providers in terms of delivery. And the SFA have said that they're going to continue to monitor subcontracting practices and then consider making further changes in the future. Whether they go down the route of actually the 50% must be delivered by one provider, we'll wait and see. But that's kind of where we are now. So within the paperwork that the SFA has produced, and there is rather a lot, and some of it seems to cover the same routes. Some in more detail, some in summary. There's an awful lot of information to take on board, but there are some questions that are asked within the document, which is called, he says, trying to find out, here we go, it's called Joining the Register of Apprenticeship Training Providers Application Instructions, an absolute crucial document that you read if you've not already done so. And section 2 of that is a section which says what to consider before applying, and it asks a whole series of questions. The first one being, will you be delivering apprenticeship training? And as I said before, if you're an intermediary or managing agent, they're not interested in you being on the register, so you're not eligible to apply. The next questions are questions if you're an existing provider. This is probably something you've already got. If not, then it's something you need to do, because you need to have one before you apply, which is do you have a UK provider reference number, UK PRN? And if you haven't, there's the link to get to the register. If Ofsted inspected you and your effectiveness of apprenticeship provision has been judged as grade 4 within the last 3 years, then you're eligible to apply. Equally, if your Ofsted inspection and overall effectiveness has been grade 4 it's inadequate within the last 3 years, then again you're ineligible to apply unless your apprenticeship provision is a grade 3. Well, for most private providers that won't be the case. It'll only be colleges that applies to, because the SFA have quite a stringent, as you'll be well aware, policy for dealing with independent training providers with Ofsted grade 4s, unfortunately. But that's where we are, and that's the world we're in. So that's a question they're asking. The next question is about the Information Commissioner's Office, and are you registered? And again, you need to be registered to be able to apply, otherwise your application will fail. And it's a legal requirement to have that registration. So if you don't have it now, you need to go and register there via that link. You also need to consider a number of policies around this, around safeguarding and prevent duty, making sure that you have policies in place. I think it's crucial that you do have policies in place. If you're an existing provider, you already will have. But if you're a new provider or an employer that's looking to go down this route, then you need to have these policies and strategies in place before you make that application. The same applies to equality and diversity policies, that it's implicit that you have those in place before you start. And then the big question about, are you able to explain the expertise or experience of your organisation or staff to deliver effective apprenticeship training that meets the needs of learners? Do you know what a successful apprenticeship looks like? Well, this is a bit of a strange question if you've been delivering apprenticeships for a while, but you've got to remember that this whole process is about opening the market, making it transparent, and allowing new providers and new employers to deliver training themselves. So you need to be able to have answers to those questions. And the final question is, as always with SFA, is, are you financially sound? And that's because there's a financial health assessment that you're going to have to go through. And you have to be at least satisfactory to be able to go through the process and be approved. And my recommendation to you is to do that first of all, because if you're not going to get through as satisfactory, then you won't be eligible to go on the register, and it will save you an awful lot of work, which is unfortunate. But it might be able that you look at other routes. Okay, so as in the guidance, there are 3 main routes for those applying on the register. The first one being the main route. And for those providers and employers that go down this route, they'll be eligible for selection by levied employers to deliver apprenticeship training, or selection by another main provider to work as a subcontractor. And SFA quite rightly are expecting the majority of applications to go through this route. The alternative route is the supporting route, and the SFA are very much marketing that as an entry route to the apprenticeship market for those organisations that offer specialism. That might be technical specialism, that might be English and maths specialism, and for those providers who only want to deliver as a subcontractor to a main provider. And if you go down this subcontracting route, you can only deliver up to £500,000 of apprenticeship training per year maximum before you have to apply for the main route to get more funding. And the final route, which is in there again from the consultation process, is the option for employers to become providers in their own rights, and for those who want to deliver training to their own staff, that they'll then have the flexibility to lead their own program. This is for the direct grants employers the SFA already has. I always use the example of Tesco's, that they're there, but there are other employers and sectors looking at this route as an option for them. And the key thing about it is you can only apply for one route, so a decision is going to have to be made as to whether you go on the main route or the supporting route in terms of providers, or if you are an employer, whether you go on the employer-provider route to deliver your own staff. If you want to broaden, some employers that I've spoken to are keen on delivering it to other staff, so effectively become a provider in their own right. They have to go down the main route if that's the case, because they want to deliver to people other than their own staff. So within the guidance that the SFA has produced, they produced some quite nice tables, which I've cut and pasted here, which is useful for you to have a look at if you've not already seen them, which actually kind of gives some scenarios and shows you the routes that you'll be able to go down. So I won't talk you through the whole slide, but that first one is, I want to deliver apprenticeship training as a main provider to employers that will use a digital account to pay for apprenticeship training. Well, the only route for you to be able to do that is the main route. But then as you go down through the table and onto the second page, it gives you options in terms of, well, what route could you go down in terms of what you want to do from a main provider point of view and the employer point of view, and then across the page on this subcontracting point of view. in terms of what you want to do and what you want to do. So it's relatively simple for you to make a decision about which route you go down when you have to submit the applications. So once you've made that decision, how do you apply? Well, you've got to go through the SFA's Bravo e-tendering portal, which I'm sure you all love. I loved it from a very different point of view when I was in the agency, and having come across to this side of the fence, I don't love it anymore, if I'm honest with you, but that's the process that we have to go down. If you don't have an account, you need to set one up because you have to do it there. The link to the guidance of how to do it is via that link where you click here. Within Bravo, there are 3 pre-qualification questionnaires, PQQs, that have been set up, and you must select one to complete, and there they are. PQQ 28910, the main route, 911, the employer provider route, and 912, the supporting route. As always with these questionnaires, they look a little bit strange if you've not seen them before. I'm sure you would have seen them before, with lots of different sections and technical envelopes and various 2.1, 2.2s to fill in. But the key thing is that there's mandatory fields there, which I know it sounds daft, but the amount of bids that are unsuccessful because mandatory information isn't there because it gets knocked back it's significant. The SFA have also started doing some YouTube videos. It's not the most exciting YouTube video you're ever going to see, but there are some useful videos to talk you through the process of how to apply, and again the link is on the presentation there. So just to talk you through a few of the sections in no real detail, but just some key points from each one. Once you've got onto the PQQ, there are a number of questions that you have to tick. So for example, you must confirm you have authorization to submit that, for example. But then it gets into some of the technical details. So the organisation details, for example, what would sound relatively straightforward, but some key things there, that the name on Bravo must match your legal name. It cannot be abbreviated. So in our case, it couldn't be GMLPF. It'd have to be Greater Merseyside Learning Provider Federation Limited. And the same would apply to your organisations. And then equally, the name on UKRLP must match your legal name as well. Otherwise, it will be knocked out. Your bid, unfortunately. And that's just part of the due diligence process the SFA has on all contracts. Equally, if you're a sole trader or a partnership, then they're asking that you put your own name followed by your trading name. So John Smith Trading as Smith Trading is the example that they use, to just be aware of that. The next couple of sections are a couple of self-declaration sections on exclusions, which would mean that your bid wouldn't get through, some mandatory exclusions and discretionary exclusions, and you can see there it's various criminal offences, etc., that you'll have to have a look at and decide whether you are or you're not eligible. Then the next section is a financial health section. As I said before, this is crucial because if you don't get satisfactory through this assessment, then again your bid will be knocked out. And the self-assessment toolkit is there. It's relatively lengthy. You have to go through your financial statements and submit various evidence in terms of actual figures and various other information in terms of your legal entity and company numbers and the period your statements cover, etc. But it's important that you have a look at that and go through that process first of all. Now, some of your organisations are exempt from submitting financial statements, and you can see the examples there. Mainly government departments, but FE colleges also have that exemption, partly because all their financial statements are already held by the SFA as part of the governance process that they have there. And as I said, most organisations must populate that toolkit with their latest financial information and upload their latest financial statements. Now, if you're unable to provide accounts because you've not been up and running for 12 months, for example, then the SFA recognise that. They're saying that organisations must have traded for 3 months to be eligible. And as long as you have management accounts and financial forecasts that cover 12 months, then that's what you must upload. And as I said, organisations will be graded, and only those as satisfactory, good or outstanding will pass the financial health assessment part of the section. The parts after that then move a bit more into compliance, capability, quality, etc. A bit more detail there. So you need to consider, regardless of the route you go down, again, the safeguarding of apprentices, which is one of the questions they asked at the start of the presentation. You need to look at the prevent strategy and how you're going to deal with that. Equality and diversity, how it's built into your processes and policies. How you're going to monitor health and safety of apprentices outside the organisation's direct control, so for those within employers, for example. How you're going to submit data to the SFA, it's still a requirement, even in the new world, you still need an MI system to submit significant data. Now obviously, if you're already a provider, you like to have PICS, Yeti, whatever the system might be, so that's not an issue, but for new providers, new employers, they're actually going to have to make sure that they have that in place or arrangements in place to deal with it beforehand. And they're also going to have to show your details of your apprenticeship training, that you have the expertise of your staff, the ability to meet the needs of the apprenticeships. Plus, put any details of any Ofsted inspection that you've been part of, or if you are a university, QAA review, which is the equivalent to Ofsted in the HE world. I think it's slightly lighter touch, if I'm honest with you, but it's a process that universities have to go through, and the DFE, SFA have recognised the fact that, well, actually that's relevant in that world. Okay. So there's an awful lot of questions in there for you to look at and to respond to, and the SFA have published, which is quite good of them, some common mistakes when making applications. Now, having sat in the SFA LSC NAS for the best part of 9 years, and having scored and assessed a number of bids over that time fairly regularly, it's quite astounding the number of mistakes that people make on putting their bids together. So I thought it was important to reiterate some of those. The first one I mentioned is not reading the joining instructions, which I referred to before. The link to that document is there. That's crucial because that does take you through the details of what they want, and it's important that you're aware of those before you start in that. The second one they say, which is very common, is failing to upload financial statements if you're not exempt, or uploading the wrong financial statements, which is, I suppose, quite easy to do if you're uploading information using last year's accounts rather than this year's accounts, which might put you in a worse position or a better position, or even not doing it at all. The other one, which is the one I came across when I was scoring bids myself, is not proofreading an application. I appreciate, and I've written bids myself again in my life as a training provider, not proofreading applications, with errors in there, with spelling mistakes in there, not answering questions fully. For those that require questions fully, more often than not, there's a top level question, and either bullet points or ABC questions below it. It's so important that you answer all the questions within that section. The people that will assess the bid only assess the words in those sections. They don't look at the whole bid. They are told to only use the words in that section. So if your words aren't there and they're somewhere else, then you're going to be penalised, unfortunately. I think the other thing is that the timeline for this is very tight. It is the 25th of November at 5 PM is the deadline, and the clock is ticking already. We're already a week into this. It came out this time last week, this information, and we're into the 2nd of November. So we've got 23 days until the window closes. So it's important you start looking at this now to make sure that application is the best possible quality you can make it. The timeline is there, pinned to the slide from the SFA, which is quite nice and colourful, which shows you where they are. So the launch of ROACT was last week. Applications opened 25th of October, closes at 5 PM on the 25th of November. I cannot stress that enough. The SFA are then going to evaluate that over a period from November, end of November to February. Bearing in mind, actually, that's really 3 weeks in December and then January and February, because obviously we've got Christmas in between. The information will then be released, the feedback to applicants, I'm told, on the 7th of March, I think it was. I've made a note of it. I haven't brought it into the room with me today. It might be earlier if you've got fewer applicants, but that's the timeline. And then the first version of the register will be published later in March, and then delivery begins in May 2017. So that's kind of everything on the register, which is one piece of work to do. The other piece of work that you need to consider is that alongside the register, the SFA have opened up the procurement, and a tender is open for apprenticeship training delivery for employers who aren't using a digital account, so the non-levied apprenticeship training, basically. And if you want to deliver training to non-levied employers, you must apply to the main route within the register, and also complete the ITT for procurement. They are going out for a minimum of £414 million, which is split 213 for 16 to 18-year-olds and 227 for 19 plus. And that funding initially is for a period from May 17 to July 18. Although Kirsty Evans at the ALP conference yesterday said that they actually have the ability to extend those contracts for a couple of years. I think the guidance is 12 months and then another 12 months. But Kirsty made it clear yesterday that they can extend that for a couple of years. And they're looking to issue minimum contract awards of £100,000 and a maximum of £5 million. Now, hopefully you'll think somewhere in between. The large national providers, that might be an issue because some of their contracts are much bigger than 5 million and they're delivering to large and small businesses. But that's for them to decide on, and for the SFA to decide on how they move forward. And the important thing to mention is the fact that this procurement only covers apprenticeship starts from 1st of May 2017. It doesn't cover carryover starts which start prior to May 2017 funded under the current system. The SFA yesterday said that they are going to deal with that in another way. They didn't make clear what another way is, but that's what they're going to do. And notice about that can be found on the Contract Finder Service website, which you can see there. So the ITT itself is ITT 30190, and it's called the Invitation to Tender for Apprenticeship Training Delivery for Employers Not Using Digital Accounts. When you print it off, it's 2 pages at the moment, 6 questions. The tender specification, it can be found by that link before, runs to about 20 pages and takes you through the 6 areas and 6 questions, which as you can see there, readiness to deliver, track record, managing reporting, quality assurance, engaging with and meeting the needs of employers, delivery of wider apprenticeship training support for employers, and then your delivery plan. They're the questions to be answered. Clearly, it's going to take some thinking about what you need to do and how you're going to do it. The other thing about this, from my point of view, is that this is a forecast moving forward. Obviously, you've got track record of delivery over a May to July period, in terms of where you need to be, and where you need to be from May 2017, which is probably your starting point. But clearly, decisions need to be made in each organisation as to whether they're looking to grow, stay the same, contract even from their current levels, move into new areas. There's a lot of unknowns around that at the moment, so I can understand people's concerns around that at the moment. But like I said, we've got less than a month now to look at this and actually put in your ITT to get that. Alongside the actual ITT itself, there is a funding and volume spreadsheet that needs to be completed. And if you look at that spreadsheet, it looks relatively straightforward, but in reality, it's relatively difficult to do. There are a number of columns there that you need to do where you need to estimate various bits and pieces. So you need to estimate the number of 16 to 18 starts you'll have from May 17 to July 18, in terms of 16 to 18 and 19 plus. You need to estimate the cost of delivery to them based on the funding bands that the government have published. Again, split by 16 to 18 and 19 plus, and you exclude the employer's contribution from that. So effectively, that's the 90% of the funding bands that you'll have to estimate for every apprenticeship. You need to put in there the additional costs of delivering to those age groups 16 to 18, 19 plus. There's a guidance tab in there which explains that is effectively the £1,000 payment you'll get. The uplift you'll get, 20% uplift that they've announced as well, along with the English and Maths payments as well. And you also need to tick the regions that you're going to deliver, or you can deliver. North East, North West, Yorkshire and Humber, East Midlands, etc., or a simple column across England. And then all the way down the left-hand side are the apprenticeship frameworks and the levels. So starting with accounting and finance level 2, level 3, level 4, level 6, all the way through to warehousing and distribution, level 5, and a section for standards under development. So that actually, if you know you're going to be moving into delivery of standards and the standard isn't ready yet, but you think you'll be moving into it, then you can put that in as well. And the SFA will use this to, one, obviously to manage the budget, two, to make sure they've got coverage across the piece, and use it as a guidance tool, I think, rather than a holding people to it. That would be my view of it. I think Kirsty Evans yesterday said that was kind of where they were, to make sure they've got no glaring gaps in terms of location or sector delivery. And that would be part of the process for this, effectively for the first year. But I think, like I said, I think it'll roll forward into two, maybe 3 years. So the procurement is opened last week, 25th of October. It closes again 5 p.m. November 25th, 2016. Notification of tender results will be the 14th of March. Contract delivery starts 1st of May and ends on the 31st of July. And the applications are via that ITT on Bravo. And again, they've done a YouTube video for you to take you through that application process, which you can watch at your leisure. So some important links moving towards the end of the slides now before we move into questions. These are just the links that you'll get with the slides to the various bits and pieces which are important and I've touched on already, for you to get the information you need to complete your application, both for register and both for the procurement of the non-levied apprenticeship training. So final thing is, yes, there it is again, 25th of November 2016, 5 p.m, the deadline for both applications. The SFA also like to have A, B out at the same time, so we've got lots to look forward to in terms of where we need to be in the future, but that's the key date for your diary. Hopefully you'll have it all boxed off before 5 p.m. On the 25th, but they will not accept anything beyond that time or date. They've made it clear about that. So that's all for the slides. I hope it's covered it in some detail for you. It is a difficult one because there's so much detail for us to go through in terms of the information that you're required to look at. And ultimately, these are decisions that you're required to make at an organisational level in terms of what you're going to do, what route you're going to go down, what level you're going to work for. But ultimately, that's where we are. We've got a few questions that have come in during the presentation, which I will go through now. First question was a point that was made was I attended a webinar yesterday, and they said that a significant amount must be delivered by the main provider unless the employer requests the use of a subcontractor. Yeah, that's the wording that they're kind of going down, but ultimately they've backed away from the majority. The majority, they made it quite clear, was more than 50%. They would, so they've come down back down to a significant amount. People's definition of significant differ in terms of where they are, and I think the fact that they're going to monitor subcontracting means that they might get future guidance out to clarify that. In terms of, for providers who only want to work as a subcontractor up to £50,000, do they have to be on ROAT? You have to go down the supporting route if that's the case. Otherwise, you have to go down the main route. Another question about the percentage of delivery expected to employees by the main provider. No, they've kind of backed off on that. They still want a relationship with a main provider and an employer, but they've kind of put wording in there in terms of the employer's request they may use a subcontractor. They want the relationship to be visible. That's the key thing, and that's where the main provider comes in. There was a question asked yesterday during coffee that nobody answered, but was in terms of, well, could they go down the route of 100% subcontracting? Doesn't say anywhere that they can't, but I think they have to come back and clarify whether that's the case. The question about the qualification rates table. The SFA have done a spreadsheet which is on their website, where it's like a Google search website where you can type in the apprenticeship you're interested in, and it spits out a value of the apprenticeship framework under the new rates, the new 15 funding bands. We will put a link to that up on the website. Nick Linford at LSET has also done a version which is unlocked, which is much easier. So I think I'll probably put that one up where you can search quite easy to see where the qualification rates are, because you'll need that for your funding and volumes spreadsheet. Will it be possible to apply for a sporting role and still to deliver levy payers directly? Yes, as a subcontractor, but you won't be visible as a provider on the digital apprenticeship service, because everybody on the main route will go onto the digital apprenticeship service, and employers, you'll come up in the searches for that route. So if you're a supporting role, you won't be visible. So it depends really in terms of whether you want you as a business to move forward and use it as a marketing tool to get to new businesses, or whether you're happy to stay in that supporting role. There's no reason why you can't support the levy payers, but it'd be under that subcontract role, which again needs a little bit more clarification once they finalise the draft funding rules, which are also out at the moment. Next question is about how quickly do we get results of the financial health check? I believe the spreadsheet should tell you once you've put your figures in. From what Kirsty Evans from the SFA was saying yesterday, she was the one that was recommending that you do that financial health check first to see whether you're going to be satisfactory or not. So from what I can gather, you should get the results immediately on the basis of the information that you've put on. I'm guessing it's all formula driven, as the SFA normally do. And there's a whole series of points that you score based on your financial information, and you have to basically score 120 or more points out of 300 points to be satisfactory. And the guidance that's been in fact, the guidance tab on that funding spreadsheet runs to about 6 or 7 pages, so you'll be able to see the information that you need to get there. Next question was, how have the SFA indicated how carryover will be funded for apprenticeships and AEB? The answer is no. They've made it very clear that this procurement exercise is purely for starts from September. And yesterday, that the Kirsty Evans said that it will be dealt with in another way, but they didn't say what that other way will be. Now, I'm at another event with Kirsty next week, so I'll ask that question to her direct then in terms of what's happening. Because my view is that because funding will be over the life of the apprenticeship framework, for example, at the moment. So under the current system, people will look to start apprentices before May. So potentially we'll have significant carryover moving forward. And the SFA obviously are probably aware of that, but we need to try and touch on that with them a bit more detail and ask that question directly. Will all subcontractors working with Prime need to be on the register? Yes, they will. They will, unless you can deliver less than £100,000 worth of training, in which case you don't have to register, which is a continuation of the same current system. But it really depends on the volumes that you're looking at, and also what you're delivering. So if you're delivering 2,000 apprenticeship frameworks in the 2,000 funding band, well, that's quite a significant number. But obviously, if you're doing it at the higher end or some of the middle bands, then it might take you over that. Next question is to clarify: if currently delivering over 100,000 as a subcontractor, do you now go in on the main and complete the ITT? And it gives you the complete the health check, and it gives you a score at the end. Yes, I've touched on the health check already. If you're looking to deliver over £100,000 as a subcontractor but less than £500,000, the supporting route is the option. If you think you can deliver more than £500,000 worth of training, then you have to go down the main route. So the choice is, you can deliver less than £100,000, in which case you don't have to be on the register. You can still continue to subcontract effectively as you do at the moment, assuming your main provider gets through the procurement process. If you can deliver between £100,000 and £500,000, then you can go for the supporting route. But if you think you're going to go over £500,000, you can go down the main route. The other thing to consider is the visibility. The main route, the minimum contract value is £100,000, but it gives you visibility on DAS, so that employers, large and small, searching for training providers will see people on that route. So it's a route to consider in terms of being able to market and expand business potentially. Okay, next question is, can you still apply for the procurement ITT even if you aren't currently working with SMEs but have plans to do so? I think the answer to that is yes, that you should consider it. if you're predominantly working with large businesses, then that's fine, who are levy payers, and you'll just be paid directly from them. But if it's something you wish to look at or broaden your delivery to, then yeah, I think it's something to consider looking at moving forward. So, what time are we now? We are 10 past 12, 10 past 11. If you've got any more questions, do send them in now, or what I suggest we do is we'll finish the webinar now in terms of what's happening. Just before we do that, just to flag up my little bit of marketing in terms of the next webinar. It's going to be on the 6th of December. I'm going to try and do them on the first Tuesday of every month. If that works for people, great. If it doesn't, then we can change it. But the next one is on the 6th of December at 10:30. The other ream of paper I've got on my desk is the funding rules, which came out last week as well. So I know I touched on the basis of what we knew at the time in the last webinar in October, and I thought we'd go back to that and look at the final update. And I've had conversations with the SFA, and a chap called Nick Ayton is going to join us for that. So you're not going to get my voice all the time, which is probably a relief. He is head of funding data and calculations at the SFA. Yes, he's a former colleague of mine, but Nick's agreed to kind of touch on some of the issues that are in the current information to be released, and he has said that there might be more information on the funding released before that date. And to register the link is there, and I'll send it out as well in the presentation slides. You will get a copy of the presentation slides, so you'll be able to click on all the links that are there. Either the funding guidance or the links to the GoTo webinar website to register for the next one. It is open for registrations now, so please do book on, and we'll speak to you in December. If anything changes, I'll send updates out to people, but Nick has said that he's free to come and talk to us. I think the SFA are quite open to talking with us as a network. I think it gives them quite a good portal to do so. It's kind of a one-to-many approach, which is what they want to do. Seeing that there's only 450 of them left at the SFA, they haven't got the ability to come out. And if they can do webinars or come to provider forums, then they're more than willing to do so. And I know Nick is doing a webinar for AELP. I think it's next week. So I've asked him if he could replicate that for us locally, which he's willing to do. Okay. So on the basis of the fact that there's no more questions come in, I hope that's been useful for you. I appreciate there's an awful lot of information for me to go through, but I hope you've now, if you've not looked at the information in detail, you've got an idea of where we're coming from and what we need to do. By all means, if you've got any questions, contact me. There's my email address, gareth@gmlpf.net, or ring me in the office and we can have a chat, and I'll try and help you out as much as I can in terms of getting more guidance, for example, via the SFA, who are keen to kind of, like I said, keen to engage with us and get that information out. But if that is all, no more questions, I will finish it up now, and I will speak to you shortly. I'm sure I'll speak to you before the 6th of December with some queries and stuff, which is not a problem at all. And if not, I'll speak to you on the 6th of December. Thanks very much. Bye.